everyone, and welcome back to the Big Analytics Query. Today, we are discussing everything to do with Databricks, and we are joined by our special guest, Calum Williams. Calum, hello, how are you?
I'm good, Tom. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Why don't you start by just introducing yourself, Calum, and everything you know about Databricks, other than wearing a very fetching hoodie?
Oh, thank you very much. So my name's Calum Williams. I'm a solution architect at Simpson Associates in the public services team. Solution architect is probably a role that has a lot of different meanings. So for me, what that means at Simpsons is I support our sales team when it comes to pre-sales engagements, understanding customers' kind of requirements, the use cases, what an architecture might look like, and how do they turn that into a roadmap to deliver that and get value for their organization. As well as that pre-sales side, I also am a delivery consultant. So I engage with customers to run data strategies, assessments, understand their data maturity, governance, everything like that, run workshops, enable users, and come up with the architectures that will hopefully help them realize their data vision.
Great. So it sounds like you really are exposed to all the stages of a project and everything that a customer needs. So in a perfect position to talk about Databricks. And of course, Databricks is a platform that we might have heard a few things about, but why don't we start by just kind of telling us what it is and its place in the market, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Databricks has been around since about 2013, if I remember correctly. And it's got an interesting history because it kind of stemmed out of some postdoc researchers at UC Berkeley. So it's got a background kind of all around academic, open source. They actually originally founded Apache Spark as well. So it's got all that kind of history and background to it. That's something they carry through today. So they are big proponents still of Spark development. They do a lot of work around kind of Delta Lake, which people may have heard in the market, and I can talk about that a little bit more. It's went from just this kind of Spark interface for people to do their work to a whole data intelligence platform now, where you can do your entire data life cycle for kind of all data users or personas in one place. So whether that is ingesting your data, cataloging your data with Unity Catalog, another open source project or product within Databricks, right through to engineering, transformations, machine learning, or then pushing it out into other services like applications, Power BI, all those sorts of good things. One of the main things that they've been proponents of is what you'll hear in the marketplace is the lakehouse architecture. So the lakehouse was this kind of evolution of all your kind of unstructured soup of data in the data lake, and then trying to put some more structure around it, which is where you get to this lakehouse architecture. It reads a bit more like tables. You can query them. It's a lot more familiar for traditional kind of SQL users and things like that.
And are there any other kind of key elements that you would say are great benefits of Databricks?
Yeah, so one of the main things that I'm seeing a lot of in organizations, especially in the public sector, is around multi-agency collaboration. And that is where you have, say, a local authority, council, how they engage with their sort of integrated care board, how they work with their local NHS trust, how they work with academic partners as well, police. There's a whole raft of public services that engage and interact with each other. And crucial for them to deliver good support services to citizens is sharing data. Now, there's a legislative aspect to that around data sharing agreements and what data is used for and the ethics of it. But the actual mechanism for sharing the data, we don't want that to just be people sending spreadsheets via email. Now, Databricks have got a really good kind of framework or technology with Delta Lake called Delta Sharing, which really makes it easy to share data from your own lakehouse to either internal users, but also to external partners. And you can do that in a very secure way now. And you can also set up things like a private marketplace where you publish your data sets and make them available to a very limited and controlled number of users, internally and externally. And that can really speed up that multi-agency collaboration and lead to better outcomes for citizens.
And I guess one of the key concerns, particularly in the public sector work, as you were saying, is making sure that the right data gets shared with the right people and definitely not the wrong. How easy is that to facilitate within Databricks in order to select those target audiences all within the same framework?
Yeah, absolutely. So the term I mentioned a moment ago was Unity Catalog. Now, Unity Catalog is the governance layer within Databricks. It's incredibly powerful. That is everything for cataloging your data, understanding the lineage of your data, which is to say, what source did it come from? What transformations did we apply to it? And then where did it end up? How is it in a current data model? As well as the reporting side as well. With that Unity catalog, that's a searchable asset, it's a searchable data store, but you can control all the access in there as well. So you can link that with your Active Directory, you can make certain tables available to certain users, all those sorts of things. Even when someone searches it, they will only see the data that they have permission to see. So that gives a lot of kind of fine-grained control on the access from a technology side. And then it's just working with the partners or your stakeholders to understand who needs access to what.
Right. And other than that sharing and Unity catalog, are there any other features of Databricks you particularly want to highlight?
Yeah, there's a number. And I guess that's one of the things that because the platform has been around for 10, 11 years now, and probably the last 4 or 5, there's been a massive expansion around that kind of lakehouse architecture and how they've broadened the platform to meet more business objectives and challenges. So there's lots of features and functionality in there that can help organizations. Traditionally, it was kind of the realm of data engineers, right, to do the Python and SQL to transform data. Gen AI, right? That's something that's all over LinkedIn. Everyone will be talking about it. I'll say it now so that it shows up in YouTube algorithms as well. We'll say the phrase Gen AI. They, because of their kind of academic history and their links with academia as well and current research, they are developing their own generative AI models, their own large language models. They've even open sourced one of them as well called DBRX. So it's really easy for users now to go into Databricks, take a large language model that's been developed, augment it with their own data, your own corpus of information, and then make a custom large language model. And then, more importantly, serve it to the organization. Databricks have put a lot of effort into making machine learning and AI actually productionizable. So historically, data scientists have always struggled to get what they've built into a business to actually use it and realize value on it. Databricks have developed MLflow, another open source piece of technology, for managing that whole machine learning lifecycle from development, training of a model, deployment of a model, monitoring of a model. That's all in there as well. So I think that's a really powerful function where organizations can get a lot of value. And if you're looking to get started on generative AI and these more advanced use cases, I think it's a really good opportunity to use some of that pre-trained stuff and then just augment it with your own information rather than trying to build something from scratch.
And you've mentioned that it's been around Databricks as a platform for 11 or so years, but it's still introducing new technologies as it goes. Are there any other things on the horizon that you're looking forward to seeing in Databricks?
Yeah, for sure. So they have a roadmap which they publish for kind of upcoming features and things like that. We're just kind of out of conference season, so there's been a few announcements the past few months. One of the big ones for me is a feature called Lakeflow Connect specifically. It was always historically maybe a little bit more difficult to land your data into Databricks in the first place. You would typically use something like Azure Data Factory or Synapse, something else within the Azure ecosystem. Lakeflow Connect is, in my mind, going to really remove that barrier to entry. It's going to give very quick connectivity native in Databricks to some of the very kind of common and most widely used data sources such as SQL databases, Oracle databases, Salesforce and Workday, all those kind of big kind of partners as well.
Many customers will already have in their environments.
Exactly. And you can really speed up your time to ingest that core data into your Lakehouse platform now with Lakeflow Connect coming up.
And then you've mentioned that integration between the Microsoft suite and the Azure, suite of different things. How is that working? And especially with the emergence of Fabric and everything else, how does Databricks link with these partners?
Yeah, absolutely. So Databricks is actually the only first-party platform on Azure, right? So you can actually just go into Azure and just spin up Databricks and start using it, which is great for time to insight and developing stuff and trying stuff out. In terms of how it integrates with the broader ecosystem, there's a couple parts there. So the other traditional platform as a service pieces, such as Data Factory and Synapse, etc., all plays very nicely. If you're using Data Factory just now, you can even use that to orchestrate some Databricks notebooks. So you can actually keep Data Factory as your orchestrator and then have it trigger some stuff in Databricks if you want to dabble in it, which is quite nice. The bigger question is probably around Microsoft Fabric and how they interact with each other, right? It's interesting because when Microsoft Fabric was announced, the storage layer for that is called OneLake. Under the hood, that's Delta Lake. Delta Lake was developed by Databricks.
Yeah.
So there's a coalescing of the underlying architectures to this kind of open source model, file-based model of, if you go down to the granular level, it's Parquet files under there, which you can use anywhere, right? So that's a really positive step for, I think, the industry, and also for that collaboration piece between Microsoft and Databricks and its partner ecosystem. The other piece is in an architecture, how do they work together? So if an organization is like, well, do I use Fabric or do I use Databricks? How do I choose? You may not have to. We actually see a lot of customers using a hybrid architecture where they will use, say, Databricks for their core engineering functionality, the transformations, lots of kind of Spark and heavy lifting work, building your data models, but then actually shortcutting those data sets out into Fabric. And then Fabric is what the kind of end users or the stakeholders in the business use to engage with the data, the Power BI, writing their quick queries and analytics against the core data set. But you use Databricks to do a chunk of the engineering work. And I think that's a really nice split to spend your time. And again, data scientists and things like that, in my experience, typically gravitate to Databricks because of how extensive the suite is in there, because it's been around for longer. I've no doubt eventually Fabric will get to that stage, but it's still a developing product. So I think that's probably where the delineation is just now, but they absolutely play nicely together.
Great. And then that's just only going to be helpful as time goes on.
Yeah, for sure. Especially around, I've kind of touched on governance a little bit already. Even the cataloging piece, you need to catalog is what Databricks uses. Purview is what is in the broader Azure ecosystem. They actually play nicely together as well. So even as all of these products continue to evolve, the connectivity and shared governance model is already there to ensure that that is stable and continues.
And you mentioned data science, something that we've spoken a bit on the channel before, and it's a hot topic and we always want to do more in some way or not. But what tools in Databricks are there that specifically lend itself towards that data science model and data science world?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my mind, there's a few different tiers of data scientists. You have your, probably more academic, comes from a PhD background, a fully fledged data scientist that knows Python and R and all these various skills. For them, one, they have scalable compute. They have the ability to do all the very complex computations in the clouds, very cost-effective price point compared with trying to run it on their own laptop. And then you're just, you have to keep upgrading your laptop, right? But eventually you hit a point. But in Databricks, you're scalable, which is really nice and gives a lot more flexibility in that. The other piece is slightly adjacent to those kind of fully fledged data scientists. I'd say probably more citizen data scientists or people who are currently in an analyst role but want to move into a data science role, and they might not have that full suite of skills readily available to them. They might still be learning Python. They might not want to or be able to currently write a full algorithm themselves. There's tools within Databricks to actually use a more low-code or quick start environment to say, I want to model this piece of my data. Here's all the features and variables that I have. I want to do a certain type of modeling and automate the generation of that kind of code. So that's a really nice way for people to, it lowers the barrier of entry, right? And people can get into data science a lot more easily. And the ML flow piece, which I already mentioned, that's huge, because that's always been the sticking point for data science, is getting the models you build out into the organization and actually using them. So I think that with the model repository, training of the model data sets, and their deployment, monitoring, reevaluation, all that is really useful.
And you mentioned in that if someone was in that analyst role and they were looking to move more into the data science, there were all the tools that Databricks have. Won't you expand on that a little bit more? How would you, do you have any top tips maybe to recommend for someone who actually wanted to get started and open Databricks but didn't even know where to click almost?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. The first thing I would recommend everybody to do is a very quick course called Lakehouse Fundamentals by Databricks. Do it in an afternoon, and you get a little certificate for LinkedIn, things like that.
That's appreciated.
Yeah, you always need to get the badges, right? That's super important. But it's a really good entry, and I'd recommend it for all levels, even C-suite. If there was any C-suite kind of audience members, it gives you a really good understanding of the Lakehouse as a concept and an architecture. Then for the analysts who want to go on the journey to start using Databricks, it's really flexible in the languages. You can use SQL, you can use R, you can use Python. It's all in notebook format, so it's very understandable. Something I would recommend you use within Databricks is the Databricks Assistant. It actually can help you generate code. Basically a built-in kind of large language model. Databricks are constantly training and evolving it. I did a webinar recently and gave an example of it where I said, can you generate me an example data frame of patient data which has the following fields? And click run, and it generated me Python code to build that data frame. And that stuff always needs to be checked.
Of course.
But as a starter for 10 to start to generate the code that you might not be entirely familiar with, I think that's a huge, huge benefit, and speeds up that learning time, but also the time to explore your data, the time to build a quick model or build a pipeline. That AI assistant is huge. Also helps with debugging as well. If an error pops up, it will suggest, do you want to use the assistant to try and figure this out? I've done it myself, and it said, oh, you said you wanted to use this field in the query, but that field doesn't actually exist. Did you mean that one, which is in your last data frame? Yeah, I wouldn't have spotted that because I'm reading things. And
when you're reading lines and lines of code, you're never going to spot a missing comma or...
Exactly, there's an underscore in it rather than, So all that sort of stuff, it spots these things, it recommends things to fix your code as well. That's the biggest thing for me. And they're baking that AI assistant into everything they're doing. Even, I don't think they will compete with Power BI as the dashboarding tool of choice. Power BI is very prevalent in the marketplace and have a huge market share. But their Databricks are leaning into AI-generated dashboarding with a thing called AI BI Genie, which I think has a lot of potential to support users in very quickly analyzing their data, building quick dashboards. I need a bar chart and, well, maybe not a pie chart. I'm not a fan of pie charts personally, but
it's a common theme.
It's a common theme, yeah. We want a bar chart, we want this table in it, and we want to see this kind of scatter plot of this data. Show me my sales data. Show me my patient events. If you're an NHS trust, show me my number of children that received care in the last 6 months. Those sorts of kind of questions you can quickly ask them of the data, and have it build a dashboard for you. You might then take that as a wireframe and then build something more comprehensive. But I think it gives you a very quick time to insight.
And I guess rather than just using a kind of wireframing dashboard that has miscellaneous data on, you've got it based on your actual data as well. So you can see the trends, not maybe all the answers, but you can at least start that journey of answering.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, again, for an organization, there are different user personas. So you will have BI developers that have the skill set and the knowledge of source systems and disparate data sets that probably already exist in the organization to build a custom dashboard for end users. But that typically becomes a bottleneck because I think every organization will agree their data team is overloaded with requests from the business to build dashboards.
Before.
Yeah, it's everywhere, right? So when you have an entire organization asking half a dozen individuals or whatever size that data team is, it is normally a smaller team within public sector as well, to build all of these dashboards and reports. They don't really have time to do some of the more foundational strategic work about let's reevaluate our entire data model, or those move into data science and those kind of strategic pieces. So having a tool like AI BI Genie, where users that might be asking the data team to do stuff can maybe self-serve a bit more easily, and just kind of ask some natural language questions and get pretty quick answers back. I think is a great opportunity to speed that up and take some pressure off BI teams as well.
I guess taking then it all the way back, if you've been watching this video and if you still are and get to the point of, okay, I like the sound of it, but actually I've never used it before, I've never gone into it. How do I start getting this into my organization? How do I start understanding? You've mentioned the badges and the courses that they offer, but where would you start maybe?
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple ways. So you can obviously talk to us. We set up Databricks environments all the time. Recently supported British Heart Foundation with their data science environment. That's entirely Databricks. Various NHS trusts and things like that. So always more than happy to give you advice on how you set up your own or work with you to help set that up. But the easiest way, if you're just looking to play around with it, is to go into your Azure portal, look for Databricks and say, set up a workspace. And then it will set it up. You can set it up in a pay-as-you-go model. And then you kind of just pay for what you're using on a consumption basis. The one thing I would say just to make sure of is you have to select a cluster, which is kind of how much virtual CPU or RAM do I want for the activities I'm doing. You can start small. You can go to very huge GPU-based clusters as well for very advanced use cases. They cost a lot more. So there's a few different options around what you select there. I would suggest, just pick a small one that's not too expensive, that lets you play around with the technology a little bit. Always try and start with a use case. It's really handy if you're looking to prove to yourself, is this useful for my business or my organization? Take some of your data in there, have an idea in mind for what you're trying to get out of it, what you're trying to prove with the platform. Is it usability? Is it governance? Is it time to insight? Is it how good is the AI assistant to help me do this? Is it, can I jump between different coding languages, right? Whatever that success criteria is that you set for yourself, take that data through, build around that, and then you can really evaluate at the end of it if it's met your needs.
Well, thank you very much, Calum, for all your wisdom. Are there any other final kind of points that you want to mention about Databricks or top tips you've got?
I think it's a great platform. Fundamentally, I think it's well established. It's got open source foundations, which is a real strategic decision point for a lot of organizations just now. It's got longevity. You're kind of avoiding vendor lock-in with a lakehouse architecture anyway. So even in the future, if you decided not Databricks, the lakehouse, Delta Lake, is all still going to be there. Spark and Python are always going to be there. So it gives you a lot of comfort and security knowing that, which I think is huge, especially in public sector where we do a lot of our engagements. And it's flexible and scalable. So I think every user persona now is probably catered for within Databricks. If not, it's on the roadmap and it's coming. And it integrates well with your existing architecture. Or if you're looking at a Microsoft first Fabric approach, I think that's very valid. But you may find use cases where you want to engage with Databricks as well. One last thing on the costings, obviously said pay as you go. If you do find that you are moving into Databricks and you reach a bit of a stable state on pay as you go, they also offer reserved instances and stuff as well, and you can get discount. So that's always something you want to look at. And once we know how much data we're processing and how often and what our use cases are, you can then look at, okay, let's reserve stuff for 1 to 3 years. We know what we're going to consume, so let's get a bit of a discount on that.
Well, thank you very much, Calum, and thank you for watching the Big Analytics Query. If you've got any questions, please do leave a message in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel, where you can see all of the other topics that we've spoken about across the past episodes. Thanks for watching. Bye.